Thank you for watching this presentation about the life, works, and influence of English novelist Laurence Sterne. This is an interactive presentation. You will have the opportunity to answer multiple choice questions about the events of Laurence Sterne's life. If you select the correct choice, give yourself 5 points. Please share your score when you give comments on the presentation. Let's see who wins. Question 1. Where was Laurence Sterne born? Was it A, Scotland, B, Ireland, or C, England? The correct answer is B, Ireland. Laurence Sterne was born on November 24, 1713, in County Tipperary, Ireland, where his father, a British infantry soldier, was stationed. His mother, Agnes, was of a lower class, and the family struggled financially. Sterne gained knowledge and respect for the military as he spent his early years following his father's regiment around Ireland. In 1723, Roger Sterne was posted in Jamaica, so Laurence was placed in the care of a wealthy uncle in England who managed his education and care. Question 2. What challenge did Sterne first encounter in college? Was it A, alcoholism, B, macular degeneration, or C, tuberculosis? The correct answer is C, tuberculosis. Sterne attended Jesus College, Cambridge, just like his grandfather, who was previously master of the college. After completing his studies, Sterne took holy orders and became a vicar at Sutton-on-the-Forest in 1738 and remained there until 1759. Question 3. What was the downfall of Sterne's marriage? Was it A, infertility, B, infidelity, or C, poverty? The correct answer is B, infidelity. In 1731, Sterne married Elizabeth Lumley, but his affairs made the marriage unhappy. Several stillbirths added to Elizabeth's sorrows, but the couple did have one child, named Lydia. In 1759, Elizabeth had a nervous breakdown and threatened suicide. When she recovered in 1762, she joined Sterne in France, where he was convalescing from a tuberculosis flare-up. Elizabeth, who some described as a prickly personality, and Lydia permanently settled in France. Since Sterne was practically a single man, he pursued several sentimental romances, and he spent the last year of his life penning letters to a married lover named Elizabeth Draper. Later, these letters were published. Much like his father, Sterne struggled financially, despite working 2 parishes and owning a small dairy farm. Question 4. What was the first type of writing Sterne attempted to publish? Was it A, sermons, B, travel narratives, or C, political propaganda? The correct answer is C, political propaganda. At the prompting of his politically ardent uncle, Archdeacon Jacques Sterne, Laurence wrote for Whig journals, especially in support of Sir Robert Walpole. His uncle even secured an easier clerical position so that Laurence could dedicate more time to writing. When Sterne lost interest in political writing, his uncle withdrew financial support. However, Sterne continued to write. To support a dean in a church disagreement, Sterne wrote a scathing satire of dignitaries of the spiritual court. Not only was his book burned, but Sterne also lost any chance for advancement in the church. However, he realized his love for writing. Question 5. What real events helped Sterne soften the satire in his famous novel, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy? Was it A, the death of his mother and uncle, B, his wife's nervous breakdown, or C, his publisher's rejection, or D, all 3? The correct answer is D, all 3. During this challenging season of life, Sterne wrote a sentimental, humorous, and thoughtful novel that was unlike anything audiences had experienced. Novels by Daniel Defoe, Samuel Richardson, and Henry Fielding were about one person's struggle to find his or her place in society, whether framing the story in the conflicting impulses of the mind, as Richardson did in Clarissa and Pamela, or in socially agreed upon truths of human nature, as Defoe did in Robinson Crusoe and Fielding did in Shamala. The stories are told chronologically and move to a punishing or rewarding end. Ingeniously, Sterne does not have his protagonist Tristram Shandy appear until the third volume of his series. Instead, the autobiographical story begins with his conception. The tale includes so many digressions that chapters are out of sequence. Much like a conversation where the speaker backtracks to add relevance to the primary story, Sterne's narration is held together by thought rather than time. Clock symbolism also reinforces this theme. Critics have claimed the non-linear plot was poking fun at the unrealistic nature of realism in popular novels, where characters move through a chronological procession of neatly packaged adventures with a clear moral. Question 6. What unconventional writing convention is used in Tristram Shandy? Is it A, squiggly lines to represent plot, B, a black page to represent death, or C, marble pages in the middle, or D, all three? The correct answer is D, all three. Sterne humorously challenges the way novels portray and explain the lives of characters. Tristram's long, digressive account of his life focuses on the accidental nature of his conception. The idea that fate, not choice, controls the course of life deflates the idea of a neat plot. Visual cues like the black page for death and the marbled pages in the middle, which usually came at the end of a novel, challenge the idea of a simple ending and beginning to one's story. Tristram posed questions about whether his social status is attached to his family or himself. Is he a product of fate, or can he improve his situation through practical education and life experience? Along similar lines, the differing specialized vocabulary of characters makes for many miscommunications, but Sterne shows how sentimental gestures can overcome language barriers. Sterne espouses the philosophy of John Locke through his meandering protagonist. Now I would like to share a passage from Tristram Shandy to illustrate several of the outstanding traits of the novel. I was begot in the night, betwixt the first Sunday and the first Monday in the month of March, in the year of our Lord 1718. I am positive I was, but how I came to be so very particular in my account of a thing which happened before I was born is owing to another small anecdote known only in our family, but now made public for the better clearing up this point. My father, you must know, who was originally a turkey merchant, but had left off business for some years in order to retire to and die upon his paternal estate in the county of, was I believe one of the most regular men in everything he did, whether 'twas matter of business or matter of amusement that ever lived. As a small specimen of this extreme exactness of his, to which he was in truth a slave, he had made it a rule for many years of his life, on the first Sunday night of every month throughout the whole year, as certain as ever the Sunday night came, to wind up a large house clock, which we had standing upon the back stairs head, with his own hands, and being somewhere between 50 and 60 years of age, at the time I have been speaking of, he had likewise gradually brought some other little family concernments to the same period, in order, as he would often say to my Uncle Toby, to get them all out of the way at one time, and be no more plagued and pestered with them the rest of the month. It was attended but with one misfortune, which in a great measure fell upon myself, and the effects of which I fear I shall carry with me to my grave, namely, that from an unhappy association of ideas, which have no connection in nature, it so fell out at length that my poor mother could never hear the said clock wound up, but the thoughts of some other things unavoidably popped into her head, and vice versa, What strange combination of ideas! The sagacious Locke, who certainly understood the nature of these things better than most men, affirms to have produced more wry actions than all other sources of prejudice whatsoever. Question 7. What was the main criticism of Tristram Shandy? Was it A, the aimless plot, B, vulgarity, or C, sentimentalism? The correct answer is B, vulgarity. While the self-published volumes 1 and 2 were wildly popular, and Sterne was well received in London, conservative readers were outraged that a book filled with double entendres and bawdy humor was written by a vicar. However, he next published a set of sermons that seemed to balance the public's reception. In an article, Brooke Allen explains the common tie between Sterne's novel and his sermons, saying, "Sterne had only contempt for the human race's exalted opinion of its own place in the universe." She goes on to suggest that the true enjoyment of the novel is lost in overly academic readings. Question 8. How did Laurence Sterne spend the final years of his life? Was it A, writing, B, living in London, or C, in declining health? The answer is A, writing. A third vicarage in Coxwood that he called Shandy Hall provided him the perfect place to continue writing 7 more volumes of Shandy. Sterne spent his summers writing in his home and would travel to London in the winter to publish his work. There he enjoyed rubbing shoulders with Lord Chesterfield, having his portrait painted by famous Joshua Reynolds, and even meeting King George III. After the success of Shandy began to fade, Sterne wrote A Sentimental Journey Through France and England to satisfy the growing appetite for sensibility in literature. According to John Peck and Martin Coyle, this was a concern for correct and moral behavior that is expressed in a softened and refined male personality. The emphasis was on having sympathy for others. They comment that Sterne's travel book both mocks and celebrates sensibility by having the protagonist's immoral desires befuddle his plans for collecting memories of meaningful relationships. This final novel was published the same year that Sterne passed away from consumption in 1768. Question 9. What scandal related to Sterne occurred after his death? A. His body was stolen from the grave. B. He had a secret child. Or C. He participated in the occult. The correct answer is A. His body was stolen. Sterne's body was sold to Cambridge for anatomy studies. Someone recognized his body and it was returned to his grave. This was confirmed in 1969, and his remains were moved to the churchyard at Coxwold, where his home, Shandy Hall, has been turned into a museum. Thank you for watching this presentation, and remember to share your score in the comments on the forum.